The recording has started.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is the quarterly towing task force meeting. It is approximately 2:04 p.m. On Thursday, February 27th, 2025. We'll go ahead and get started with the roll. I do see some of our members are here. So we'll start with John Connolly. Have not seen him yet. Captain John Hahn. Have not seen him yet either. Jennifer Henson.
I'm here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim House. Have not seen him yet. Mike Padilla. Haven't seen him. Michael Pierce. Officer Prensky.
I'm here.
Thank you. Brandon Rich. I actually just got an email from him a moment ago. He said he was not going to be able to attend. I asked him if he has a replacement, so we'll see if he responds to that. Jeffrey Reister. Not seeing him yet. Nathan Riley, that's myself. I am present. Joyanne Rusha. Mr. Schoenheit.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And Seth Thomas. Not seeing him yet either. Okay. We got a lot on our agenda today, a lot of things to go through. So we'll just go ahead and plug along. Don't want to waste anybody's time. And again, we do have a full agenda for today. So we'll go ahead and start with a few administrative updates. The second item on the agenda was the approval of the minutes. We don't have quorum yet, but we'll see if we get it as we plug away. And wherever we are, we'll stop if we attain quorum, and we'll make sure and get those minutes approved. But on to the administrative items to discuss. Just a couple things. Obviously, we've moved to the new quarterly meeting format. So we've sent out some emails over the past few months about that and the new meeting cadence that we're going to have for the rest of this year. So you should have seen those in the emails already, but just a reminder for everybody. So this was our first meeting today on February 27th. The next meeting is scheduled for May 14th. The following meeting after that is going to be August 13th. And then the meeting following that will be October 9th. And they are all going to run on the same time frame that we have today, which is 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Another thing to discuss is we've been talking internally as part of a larger accessibility initiative by our department and specifically the PUC division. I believe we may be migrating to a different kind of a meeting format in regards to the how we actually hold them. I know we've been using Google Meets for at least dating back to 2021, but it looks like we may be moving to a new Zoom/YouTube format. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. We may see that as soon as the next meeting in May. But we'll go ahead and loop you all in on that just so you're not surprised and you can attend the future meetings in a way that's convenient and makes things accessible for others. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. I believe those are the only administrative items that we had for today. A couple other things may pop up a little later, but for now, those are the only things on my list. So moving on to item number 4 on the agenda, we have an item for our PUC director, Rebecca White. If she has anything she'd like to say or comment on to the group, feel free to do that now.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to make sure I was sitting in on these meetings and trying to get more engaged with the efforts of this group. As Nate mentioned, this is our first meeting under the quarterly plan. We remain very open to ideas like we've been brainstorming the last couple of meetings of how to encourage greater participation at these meetings. I got actually questions at the committee hearing when this task force sunset was up because the sunset report sort of noted that we were having difficulty getting quorum, and so several members of the legislature sort of asked what can we do to see if we can't sort of turn that around. So this is one of the ideas. Megan today is going to talk about some of the outreach we have planned around towing, what the rules are and what the consumer protections are. We really like your guys' input on that. The other thing I'll just mention is obviously we are in the middle of the session. We're not seeing any towing bills this year. However, other than the task force, however, there is a bill introduced that would increase regulatory oversight on the booting industry, and using a lot of the same constructs right now as proposed that we have for towing, including some changes in notice provisions and things like that. So the sort of continued legislative interest in the vehicle immobilization writ broad industry continues. But luckily we have a bit of a pause for towing in particular to give Nate a chance to implement some of the past bills. So that's really where I'd say our focus is. Well, if I was to break it down, I'd say it's 3 areas. One is on our just continued enforcement investigations. We just had a major settlement with the towing company, resulting in investigation. So that's sort of one area of focus. The second is just making sure we're implementing all the bills that we passed. And the third is what Megan will talk about, which is really trying to get out and connect with people before they get towed, ideally, but then when they're in the moment, sort of creating a stronger connection to the PUCs in the space. And if they really want to quickly understand was their tow proper or not, how can we be making resources readily available for them to find that out, and be able to advocate for themselves in the moment, perhaps, or have a better understanding when they file a complaint with us, kind of what the situation is going into that. So we're kind of excited to get out there and get some of this information out. We'll probably be doing the same with booting, but towing is certainly our first focus. So that's kind of where things are at on our end. We do expect the towing task force bill to kind of continue through, and I imagine it'll pass, which means you guys are with us for quite a while longer. But let me pause there and just ask if anyone has any sort of questions or comments for me in particular based on what I've said or other issues you have in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably just, as far as I know the chart, and we've talked about this before, just, as far as getting the input in from the subject matter experts in the industry, as far as any of the bills that are introduced, such that there can be some input back from, the towing task force into the legislative process, because it just seems like it continues just to get circumvented, and the bills get thrown up during this when the session opens, and then we're just kind of watching it all happen, and there's really not much feedback. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure some of the folks that are on, potentially provide feedback, and I know, this committee, commission is charged to look at rates and things like that. But even if as a courtesy that the bill drafters would push things over to such that they can get input, and be able to provide feedback before they just throw it out into the session and go live with it. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Understand. I will say there has been at least some stakeholder work, at least that I've observed as these bills have developed. But I think you're very right to acknowledge that maybe that's missed a very relevant group. Nate, I think, you and I can probably do more of an effort to connect back to the task force during session, so that you guys are getting up-to-date information as we see bills. I do expect, knock on wood, things to quiet down for a while, just given the amount of attention we've had on towing. And one of the reasons I want to do this outreach work is also to be able to communicate to the state legislature that, hey, look, you've passed all these bills, they're having an impact. Here you can see kind of the outcome of that and how we're explaining that to consumers. And hopefully that kind of helps turn the attention elsewhere, because I don't think that there's much left to do in this space given the number of bills we've had recently. But Ed, point understood, and I think we can be helpful in some cases to remind members of the legislature that this is a good advocacy and information group to be connecting with. All right. Thank you, Nate. I appreciate having the time on the agenda today.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for attending and sharing your thoughts. I agree with what you say, what you and, Ed were just discussing on, interaction with the legislature. And again, obviously that would take some work on our part, as towing task force members to kind of unify our message if we were to engage with the legislature on, various topics. So yeah, that just would require us to again, meet and, be able to have quorum to vote on those types of things and make sure we have a unifying message going out to legislators or others that are pursuing different policy positions. So no, I think that's a great conversation. All right. Well, thank you, Director. Appreciate you coming and speaking with us today. Let's go ahead and move on to agenda item 5, which is Megan, our Public Information Officer at the PUC. I think you had a couple things you wanted to discuss for towing outreach.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Megan Castle. I joined the PUC back in August, and there's lots to get caught up on, and towing is something that I've been working quite a bit with lately, and I want to thank Nate for all of his work in supporting this. I wanted to touch on a few things that we're thinking about for outreach, but mainly to talk about the PUC website. And the website is, and I want to show you some mock-ups of what we're thinking. So a couple things, we are going to need to be, as a state agency, in compliance with accessibility mandates. And that means that we need to do certain things on our website and not do certain things on our website, i.e. a lot of times you'll see Google folders, and personally I think that they're super efficient, but they're not easy for people who have needs and need to use screen readers or other types of assistance in order to navigate websites. So there's some things that you're going to see that are no longer going to be on our website. That also goes to a lot of the forms that we have. Nate and I will be working on that, or his team will be looking at the forms. Most of them, if they can become Google forms, that will happen. If they can become fillable PDFs, that will happen. But something that you have to print off and return via snail mail is not deemed in compliance with accessibility. So we have a lot of things that we need to do as far as getting that website in compliance. And while we're doing this, we're taking the opportunity to look at the website from a lens of how can we improve the user experience. So we know that we have industries such as folks like you who use the website for your business needs. And we also have consumers that may come to this trying to get information about their tow or what's happened with them. We also have media, legislators, other folks coming. So one of the things that we're doing is looking at towing is under the PUC's transportation unit. And we're looking at a lot of the different units that are at, or we're looking at all of the units, I should say, and we're building some new web pages. So I wanted to show you what a mock-up looks like. Again, please know that there's, essential forms and needs and information will not be removed from this as we migrate and change and update the site. But we do need to have this go into compliance. Nate and I have lots of edits, but I just wanted to share with you kind of a walkthrough of what it looks like. So this is, I'm going to share with you what's the transportation landing web page. So you're all familiar with going to PUC. You can click on one of the icons at the top. Transportation is where you would go. You probably all have the towing pages bookmarked. So that might be something you have to hit refresh when we do have final pages. But so as you can see on this page, you're going to see that we have the transportation landing page, and we put towing here at the top. Now the other topics like the transportation networking companies, common carriers, household goods, all of these are here too. And the common theme is that we have these two boxes here for towing consumer information and then towing industry information. And we know that if you come as someone who's been towed versus someone in the industry, you are looking for completely different information. And so, so we are creating different web landing pages for that. So, any questions about this? Again, I know that a lot of the there's other buttons on here that we're looking to keep. This is just the mock-up of how this is going to be looking. And so, any questions so far? Okay, awesome. I'm going to stop sharing that, and then I'm going to go to what I'm calling the towing industry page. Oh, Ed, you've got a question?
One, I don't know if we want to put a tab on there that might have a link to, I know all municipalities are different, between the counties and the cities, but if it would be worthwhile to put anything on there that applies to state parking laws, from which, owners could be subject to being towed under the law, and put any references, under the state statutes for, basically the state transportation law statutes that most of the counties and cities usually typically adopt that state law that, explains, where you can't park and what you can get towed for.
Okay. That's great information. Nate, you and I can talk offline about that too. Jenny.
Yeah. Is there going to be a spot for like the people that need to come in and get forms? Like, for instance, we do a lot of non-consensuals, and the new authorization form for property owners, everybody has a really, really hard time finding that. So if there was like a forms, a documentation or forms, things for property owners where they could go directly to it, where we could say, hey, go to the PUC website, it's underneath forms. Because I'm looking at it on my other screen, and it's that big yellow box, and you have to go to like the wording that says authorization form, and everybody gets really confused. So I just have a link, so I just send it to people's emails. But if I'm not from my computer, I can't do that, and I'm trying to explain it, it does get kind of confusing.
Right. So, well, you know what? I pulled up the industry page, but let's just look at the consumer page instead. So this is the landing page for that consumer button. And so we have information here about the different types of tows. We are going to have, there's the law enforcement tow, residential towing information, commercial tow. Some of the links work and some don't, because again, this is a mock-up. So, but while we're building the back part, but what happens when you file a complaint, important forms for towing consumers. So,
perfect. Yes, exactly.
Well, that sounds like it will be very helpful for consumers. So those are what we have on here so far. In addition, we have this showing the background towing information. So this is just information more as far as telling the PUC background story about, who works here, how are the work units shaped, what protecting consumer rights, just other pieces of this, what you need to know if you've been towed. And then I'm going to show that we have the towing carrier fuel surcharge on here. And there's one other thing that I'm going to show you. Okay, so if you've been towed, let's see, were you towed from a residential area? So if you click on this, we collaborated with the consumer affairs team to ask them, what kind of questions do you get when people call in and they're seeking help? So that shaped this. And it says, were you towed from a residential area? Why was my car towed? My car is not where I left it. Then it said, now what? It gives them like, call the towing company. The longer your car is at the tow yard, the higher your cost is to retrieve it. Call the tow company, questions to ask. How do I get my car back? Can I make smaller payments? Here's this retrieval form, maybe something you were pointing to. Can I get my personal items out of the car for free? Who authorized my car to be towed? What happens if I don't pay and want to pick up my car? And then if I have questions. So this was really developed again from our consumer affairs team that helped us look at this, and they're like, these are the questions that they get asked when they're dealing with consumers. So we have this, and we also have it for the commercial side. So the commercial arena, or I'm sorry, area. Oh, we don't have that one up yet. Sorry. But what that will be is this very similar. So it'll say, I was towed, what do I do? Because there's some nuances between the residential, obviously, and the commercial areas. And some questions to you would be, so as operators, what is there information that we can get to consumers? And first of all, a web resource so that Jenny, you could say to, somebody calling you, you can find it easily on the PUC website. Maybe it'll come up in a Google search easier. That's our goal. And then secondly, if you have somebody physically in your towing office, is there information in a poster that would be helpful to the person who's been towed and helpful, for resolving this and working with the towing company so that they understand this? So just looking at that residential, I was towed from a residential area. For example, if you had something this in a poster, I'm just curious, there's no right or wrong answer. Would something like this be useful to have in? Yeah, Jenny.
Yeah, I think that's great information. I think that's kind of what we've been looking for a long time. I think a poster with just what you have right here would be awesome. It would help train staff, and it would help people who come in who we may be dealing with one person at the desk. If we had it on the wall, they could be reading it at the same time, which would answer some of their questions before they even get to the front of our desk. Yeah, this is a lot of the phone calls that we get are the same ones asking these same questions, and we answer them all day long. So I think you've nailed it. Like, this is a really, really good list, and will make everybody's lives a ton easier. And it's a lot of, even for our staff or whatever, if they forget something, they could go to your website and go, oh, okay, that's what it is. Because towing is very confusing when you're training people. They write it down, but sometimes they write it down wrong, or they just don't remember. So it could be really easy to jump on here and go, oh, okay, that's what it is. Because they try and answer questions the drivers do for their customers also when they don't really know it.
Right.
So
So they might not know the questions to ask just being there. So this would be helpful too.
Yeah, this is going to be way helpful. This is really good.
So for you, Jenny, and for others, what would be like if we had this and emailed it out? Would you be able to print it and post it, or would you prefer to have this printed and deliver, or mailed? What's the best way to get this to operators? No.
I think you could do it both ways. You could do an emailed option, like a color emailed out to all tow carriers, and then maybe an order form. Like if you don't have a printer with color, you could order a form for $5 and it would just be mailed to you.
Okay.
Or maybe like a laminated copy would be good too. Like we have a colored printer, we can just print it out unless you wanted it to be large. Maybe you have different sizes. I mean, I think that a decent sized poster would be nice.
So like an 8.5 by 11, which is a standard sheet of paper, is that too small for this? Would you like a poster size?
Yeah, I was something bigger, like kind of like the posters they've sent out. You can get for compliance laws, like that are behind me on the wall.
Okay. Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff, where you could really post it and it would be good color. Like I know we order these, which are nice because we can't print that large, and they give me an option to check the box and order one, and I always do that because
Okay.
I know it's legal. I know like the size is the legal format they want, and if I do that, it makes it easier to me because I know I'm following all laws because that's what they're requiring and that's what you can order. So
Okay, super. Okay, that sounds great. That's awesome feedback. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that.
of course,
Are there any other, and we would do this for, we're planning it, we have it written for residential, then for commercial. And we also have one for law enforcement ones because they are different. So it might be that we could put them all in one large poster, just depending upon size, but we do have these individual pieces on our website right now. I mean, they will be on the website, sorry, when we get it live. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so thank you for that. So I'm just going to go back and I wanted to show the industry page. Okay, so this will have, your business links up here, as well as changing ownership, business forms, the training. Still need to add some live links here as we build this out. We have the rules and regulations, and then I don't think that this is live. Oh, it is. Okay, that one does work, so that takes you back there. And then we have the towing task force. This is where information for this group will be living as we've designed. So up here is the notice for upcoming meeting and the members. I know we were talking earlier about there's a vacancy on the towing task force, and the PUC has an external newsletter that's going out. So if you're not getting it, please let me know and I'll help you get signed up for it. But I was looking at adding that there is this vacancy in the towing task force and to help get the word out for that. Then I wanted to talk about how compliance affects these meetings and these blue boxes here. So we should be transitioning to a Zoom format. So that will happen for the next meeting. And the reason for doing that is that it can go to YouTube, and the PUC has a YouTube channel. We are looking at how we can make that just for towing task force, of how we can kind of make it like a chapter for it. And so the meetings will be on our YouTube channel in the future. And we're going to look to merge them instead of having a column for meetings and a link there and then agenda in minutes, that will all be together. So those changes will happen. And also over here with the towing task force, I'm not sure. Again, this is a good example. Oops, I'll share this. In the towing task force, it has information. This is all in a Google folder, which unfortunately is not it's not accessible. So we're going to be moving information. I know that the task force report can be moved up to that homepage. So we'll do that. So that's a lot of information. And I just wanted to check in any other questions at this point. Let me also add, okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Well, I do, Director Wright brought up the booting in mobilization, and we are working on, for your information, just because it came up, this has been added to our website. You can get it. Currently, it's right here, obviously booting, and then If you click on that, what it is right now is that format of my car has a boot on it. What do I do now? So it's in that consumer question Q&A. We have other content that we're adding. There'll be two more Q&As that will be put into this. And then also we're going to have a landing page that will just talk more about booting. So I just want to make sure folks, if you're interested, you can check that out at your own time. And that's it for me right now. Any last questions? All right. Well, thank you. And thanks, Nate, for all your support in this, and to everybody for helping us get the word out here.
Thanks, Megan. Really appreciate all the information and kind of showing, the members and everyone else, some of the initiatives we're taking to make, the different regulation of our industry is more transparent and accessible for consumers and others. Having worked in the towing industry for a long time, some of the different ways we're going about this, as spearheaded by Megan, it's some of the most streamlined information I think I've seen from the commission. So at least in the transportation space. So we're really appreciative of her efforts, in kind of making all this information more accessible, not only to the industry members, but also to the consumers as well. So definitely appreciate that. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 6, which is PUC updates, specifically rulemakings and data collection. So I do have an update on that. We do still have a towing rulemaking that's still pending. It's proceeding number 24R 0382TO. This was the one we initiated back in September of last year. Again, it largely implements the towing bill that was passed last year, House Bill 24-1051. Again, it is still pending, but I think we are likely to see some effective rules on that one soon, maybe even within the next couple months. And one of the things that will be implemented at that time includes a data collection aspect. I know it's something we've talked about over the last few years. And it's something they added in as part of House Bill 24-1051. So we're integrating that concept into the PUC's rules, which again should be effective here pretty soon. It's also going to be something that will it's going to be contingency of their permit. So they will have to submit the data we're requesting in order to have their permit continue or renew. Or to be issued a new permit if it's a first time coming in kind of situation. So the types of data we're going to be collecting is similar to what we had in the poll that we took back in 2021, the survey. So it's going to include the number of tow trucks that the towing carrier operates, the volume of tows that they are conducting by category. So that'll be broken up into consensual, non-consensual, and law enforcement ordered tows. And also, to make sure the data is available, consensual tow pricing, if applicable. Obviously, not all towing carriers do consensual tows, but the ones who do will be required to put in what their pricing structure is for those consensual tows, which will be helpful. There's also a kind of a catch-all provision that any other information determined as necessary by the commission could also be requested. But I think we'll probably at least start with those 3 major data points, which I think will be helpful to us. It is going to be set up in a way where that data will be due by February 1st of each year. That is somewhat flexible the way it was written into the rule, but I think we'll probably stick with that date at least to start. So I'm guessing the towing task force will likely have access to this data once it's been collected, or at least after it's initially collected and possibly on an ongoing basis as well, which could then be used by members of this group for policy determinations and to help us draw some conclusions based on that data. That might not be something that we have access to until the first round of data collection, which I'm guessing will be February of next year. So yeah, we'll definitely look forward to that. And I think it'll be good data to be able to use. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 7, which is our annual training. So some of you have been through this before. If so, it's largely similar to in past years. But it's an annual requirement from the department excuse me, that we all go through, where we talk about various things, including, the history of the task force, the department that the task force is housed under, the PUC itself, and then there's also some legal aspects that we're going to be discussing as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the presentation. I think I'm going to handle the first 8 or so slides because it deals with the department and some of the other things that I'm more familiar with. But then we'll turn to Ms. Grooms, our Attorney General, to do the more legal side of things. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. So again, this is for towing task force members, and it's an overview of different processes and procedures. Again, the presentation will be given by myself and our Assistant Attorney General, Kristen Grooms, who's from the Financial and Health Services section at the Colorado Attorney General's office. Obviously, this presentation is for training purposes only and does not technically constitute legal advice. You can, of course, consult your own private attorney if you have any specific questions regarding any of these topics. So what we're going to be going through today is the overview of the Public Utilities Commission, an overview of this body, the Towing Task Force, the Towing Task Force's duties and powers. And then the later bullet points are more of the legal side of things, which is Colorado Open Meetings Law, best practices for running meetings, ex parte communications, conflicts of interest, and of course the Colorado Open Records Act, or CORA. So we'll go ahead and start with an overview of the Public Utilities Commission. The PUC is an independent administrative agency within the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, also known as DORA. So DORA is our department, and the PUC is a division, one of several, a dozen or so divisions within that department. The PUC does regulate a wide range of industries in Colorado, including, for our purposes, transportation is the applicable category. The PUC regulates different types of passenger transportation, including taxis, limousines, transportation network companies, or TNCs, such as Uber and Lyft, towing, moving, booting companies, and things kind of in that area. The PUC also regulates rail and transit safety, gas pipeline safety, and then various fixed utilities such as electric and gas utilities, telecommunications, and water utilities, amongst others. So the PUC commissioners and staff, the PUC has 3 appointed commissioners. They are appointed by the governor for 4-year terms and are also confirmed by Senate vote. There's no more than, by law, no more than 2 of the commissioners can actually be from a singular political party. The PUC also has a lot of expert subject matter staff. So these are people who have expertise in the various industries that the PUC regulates. Staff can often act as either an advisor to the commission or to the judges we have on staff, or in a litigation trial capacity where staff kind of pursues their agenda for various matters, depending on their role in each case will dictate kind of how they perform in the different and various matters before the commission. Our commissioners currently, so our current bench is Commissioner Tom Plant, Chair Eric Blank, and Commissioner Megan Gilman. And I believe 2 of them were recently reappointed to fresh terms. So this is likely to be the current commission bench for a while. The staff that we have at the commission are, again, in these various industries that the PUC regulates. So there's staff that have expertise in the fields of energy, telecom, transportation, of course, rail, gas pipeline. We also have policy advisory groups who advise the commission on various matters. We also have research and emerging issues, strategic communications, and consumer affairs. The consumer affairs group takes a lot of the initial complaints for our division across these various industries. And then, of course, you've already heard this afternoon from our director, Rebecca White. Moving on to the PUC's regulation of towing carriers. So the PUC's authority to regulate towing carriers is set forth in, amongst others, various Colorado statutes, including the 40-10.1401 statute, which requires towing carriers operating in what we refer to as intra-state commerce. That's point to point within the state of Colorado. It requires towing carriers operating in that capacity to obtain a permit from the PUC. It also sets forth some requirements and various conditions to hold such permits. We also have 40-10.1106 1B CRS, which authorizes and requires the PUC to prescribe various rules covering a variety of issues, including for towing carriers specifically, circumstances under which a towing carrier may perform a non-consensual tow, the responsibilities for the care of a towed vehicle, so essentially the towing carrier's liability when in the custody of a towed vehicle, minimum and maximum rates and charges to be collected for a non-consensual tow, as well as storage of the towed vehicles. So the PUC has adopted rules and promulgated rules that regulate transportation carriers under our 6000 series of the commission rules. For towing specifically, that can be found between rules 6500 and 6514. So what we refer to as the 6500 series is where you can find a lot of the towing rules. It's about 20 pages or so worth of rules that are specific to towing carriers. So feel free to let us know if you'd like a copy of those. They are available on the website, but we're happy to send you a copy if you're interested. Moving on to an overview of the Towing Task Force, or the TTF as we call it. So the TTF is an advisory committee. It's created within the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, again, also known as DORA. So again, this Towing Task Force is essentially housed underneath our department with the Public Utilities Commission kind of giving it guidance and structure. So as of November of 2021, the TTF consists of 14 members. Each is appointed to either a 2 or a 4-year term. The majority of these members are appointed by the governor, but there are a couple that are appointed by other parties. So we have one membership slot that is appointed by the chief of the Colorado State Patrol, as well as another that is appointed by the Attorney General. And then by statute, the TTF is required to meet at least twice a year. Those of you who have been on the task force a while know that we've frequently met a lot more times than that in a given year, but again, we're trying out this new quarterly meeting format. And moving on to the Towing Task Force duties and powers. So the TTF has the duty and power to make recommendations to the PUC about non-consensual tow rates. That's our primary directive. So the TTF specifically is tasked with making comprehensive recommendations to the PUC about the maximum rates for the recovery, towing, and storage of a vehicle that has been towed without the owner's consent. So again, that would be a non-consensual tow. And again, the underlying statute for that is 40-10.14035A CRS. The TTF must also make pursuant to statute, the TTF must also make comprehensive recommendations to the PUC about the maximum rates after July 1st, 2022, but no later than November 1st, 2022. So again, that was our reporting requirement, which we met back in 2022, and we did submit that report on time. State law also instructs the PUC to consult with the Towing Task Force when issuing or amending rules concerning towing rates, and that's pursuant to 40-10.14034A CRS. And then finally, the Towing Task Force also has the duty and power to make recommendations about investigations of overcharges. So the Towing Task Force is tasked with advising the PUC or staff concerning investigations of overcharges made by towing carriers. So that kind of ties to the recommendations made on rates. And again, that's found under 40-10.14035B. The statute directs at the discretion of the commission that PUC staff shall consult with the Towing Task Force concerning investigations of overcharges made by towing carriers in violation of the statutes in Title 40, and that's under 403-4B. And the Towing Task Force, this is a more recent addition. I believe it was part of House Bill 221314. So the Towing Task Force is tasked with analyzing and making recommendations to the Commission about non-consensual towing rates charged to the public while taking into account current consensual towing market rates and their relationship to non-consensual towing rates. And that's found in 403(5)(c). So again, that's another reason why I think it's good that the commission is going to be collecting that kind of data from towing carriers as a contingency of their permit issuance, so that that information can be used for these and similar purposes. All right, I think that concludes my portion of the presentation. So Ms. Grooms, if you want to jump in and just let me know when you want me to move the slides along.
Sure. So I'll just do the basic overview of things, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to hop in. And I will also be sending out a really lengthy, like 25-page legal memo about this. So as an advisory committee within DORA, Towing Task Force is a state public body, which means you're subject to the statutory requirements of KORA, the Open Meetings Law first, but also KORA, which is also referred to as the Sunshine Law. Even though it is advisory, the TTF is subject to the requirements of the OML. This means that you're subject to specific requirements for your meetings. Your meetings must be noticed to the public, must be open to the public, and must be documented for public inspection. Next. By statute, a meeting that is subject to OML requirements is very broad. It can include any kind of gathering convened to discuss public business in person, by telephone, electronically, or by other means of communication. And this can even be two people speaking about board business outside of a noticed meeting. A meeting does not include, to be subject to the OML, the meeting must be part of the policy-making process, potentially leading to a decision within TTF's authority. Chance meetings or social gatherings where there is no intent to discuss or actual discussion of TTF business. For example, emails about administrative matters such as scheduling a meeting are not counted in this. Next. Any meeting between two or more members at which public business is discussed or at which formal action may be taken is a public meeting that should be open to the public. So again, this includes emails, phone calls, or any other form of electronic or non-electronic communication. Any meeting at which a policy position, resolution is adopted, or other formal action occurs, or at which a majority or quorum is in attendance must be noticed to the public. These notices include the time, date, place, and a specific agenda. Meetings must be held at a place reasonably accessible and at a time reasonably convenient to the public, and 24 hours is generally required for notice. The minutes of any meeting shall be taken and promptly recorded, and such records shall be open to public inspection. Failure to follow these requirements can result in invalidation of action taken. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, next. There are exceptions to OML for executive sessions. The OML allows that these closed sessions can be held for conferral with counsel concerning pending or imminent court action, specific claims or grievances, or legal advice on specific legal questions. Matters required to be kept confidential by state or federal law or rule, or specialized details of investigations, including where disclosure of the matter discussed could reveal information that could be used to commit or avoid prosecution for a violation of law. These exceptions are expressly outlined in the CRS, and there are other exceptions, but they're very unlikely to apply to you. Next. Best practices for running meetings. So at meetings, there should be open and constructive deliberation. Majority rules, members have equal rights to speak and vote. Only one matter should be discussed at any one time. A courteous atmosphere. And secretary's minutes should at least show the time and place of the meeting, the name of the presiding officer, names of members present, and a record of all business transacted. And no business can be transacted unless more than half of the members, known as a quorum, is present. Next. Ex parte communications, this is very important. In general, an ex parte or one-sided communication occurs when one party to a case talks or writes or otherwise communicates with the decision maker about issues in a case without the other parties present. One-sided communication is problematic because it can prejudice other parties since they're not able to hear what is said and they can't respond. And the concern with ex parte communications applies to the discussion of substantive issues in a case and not to discussion of administrative matters, for example, the date of a hearing or a meeting. Next. Ex parte communications are prohibited with PUC commissioners or staff. PUC commissioners and staff are prohibited from ex parte communications regarding disputed issues or facts in an ongoing case. The concern is that one party will unfairly provide information to the decision maker. Further, Section 46.123 of the CRS requires PUC commissioners and staff to avoid even the appearance of impropriety or of a conflict of interest. Appearances of impropriety can weaken public confidence in the government and create a perception of dishonesty, even among government officials who are in technical compliance with the law. So the takeaway here is to be mindful of these obligations on PUC commissioners and staff when considering whether and how you communicate with them. So implications for TTF members. As an advisory body, the TTF does not have the same strict restrictions on ex parte communications as the decision-making PUC commissioners and staff, but the best practice would be to disclose any ex parte communications between a TTF member and a third party that leads to the member bringing forward a proposal or making a specific recommendation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Was that our final slide or is there more? Oh, sorry, there were more. So conflict of interest can arise when there is a conflict between a public duty of a private citizen and his or her own private interest. And usually this shows up as a financial interest, but not always. A private interest can also include a non-financial interest, such as a personal, political, religious, friendship, or a personal relationship that may be affected by actions taken. So the rules of conduct applying to the conflict of interest. Section 24.18.108.5 of the CRS establishes rules of conduct for members of an unpaid board, commission, council, or committee. This statute prohibits such members from performing an official act which may have a direct economic benefit on a business or other undertaking in which such member has a direct or a substantial financial interest. Each TTF member has been appointed specifically to represent a particular interest group and or community, and this may make identifying and resolving conflicts of interest more complicated for TTF members. And if you have any questions about that, go ahead and reach out to me and we'll discuss. So disclosure of conflicts. In connection with any actual or possible conflict of interest, a member must disclose the existence of any financial interest and, as applicable, any non-financial interest. Typically, if a member has a direct financial interest in a matter, it may be appropriate for that member to disclose the conflict and refrain from voting or participating in the discussion of the issue. And it may be more complicated for the TTF given the makeup of your members, but disclosure and discussion with the group is a good starting point. There's also a formal process that says a member of the unpaid board, commission, council, or committee may, prior to acting, disclose the nature of the private interest in writing to the Secretary of State. But that's a pretty complicated process, but if someone is interested in that, we can help you. Does anyone have any other questions about OML? Okay, so onto the Colorado Open Records Act. CORA is a state statute declaring that it is the public policy of the state that all public records be open for inspection by the public. This is to ensure that the workings of the government are not unduly shielded from the public eye. So what constitutes a public record? A public record includes all writings made, maintained, or kept by the state agency or by the state or any agency. A writing includes all books, papers, maps, photographs, cards, tapes, recordings, any other documentary materials that you can imagine, basically, including emails. Certain writings are excluded from this definition, but that includes criminal justice records. And those are set forth in statutory definition of public record. And I don't believe many of those would probably apply to this group. So this is important for you because your paper records, electronic records, emails, Outlook calendar, Voicemails, even your personal text messages or emails that discuss TTF business are all subject to a Cora request at any time by any person and for any reason, even if they don't have a reason. So again, anyone can make a request. Members of the public, the press, anonymous requesters, anyone, for pretty much any purpose. And there are very, very few exceptions to this. There are a set of very limited exceptions, including a category of records and instances where inspection must be denied, where inspection would be contrary to state or federal law. The exceptions also specify records and instances where inspection may be denied. And in these cases, the standard is whether disclosure to the requester would be contrary to the public interest. So it happens, if anyone receives a Cora request at all, go ahead and reach out. Does anyone have any questions about Cora? And there's a very fast turnaround on Cora requests, about 48 hours. So if you receive any request, even if it doesn't say Cora request, if it's at all requesting information about anything, go ahead and forward that to me and we'll take care of that.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Grooms. Definitely appreciate the legal review of some of these more legal style concepts. Definitely appreciate that. Just FYI, everybody, as in past years, members are required to go through this training annually, and we have done it in past years as well. It also requires a affidavit indicating that you've gone through the training, you understand the training, you've been given opportunity to ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. So Hadija will likely be circulating copies of that form for you to fill out and return, just like in past years. So keep an eye out in your email for those. But definitely appreciate everybody's time in going through that training. Going along in our agenda, we're down to our last few items on the agenda. Reporting timelines is the next item that we had to discuss. Hold on just one second. Sorry, got a few too many screens open here. Okay. So when it comes to reporting timelines, I know we talked about that in some of our previous meetings. Given that we likely will not see any of the data collection that the PUC is going to be pursuing in the towing industry until sometime probably in 2026, I do think it's reasonable to set a goal to have a report sometime next year, maybe even sometime in the later half of next year in 2026. I wasn't sure if anybody had any thoughts on that, because I do think once we have that data, we should be able to draw some additional conclusions, maybe that we haven't really had available to us, based on, for example, the survey we did back in 2021. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody had any thoughts on any reporting goals or anything like that maybe we wanted to just have out there and have on our minds. Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is work groups. So this is a discussion I wanted us to have on work groups. I know we've talked about it before, especially over the past year, about maybe setting up work groups to pursue different topics and stuff that we've discussed. I've gone back and looked through some of our previous meetings and some of the topics we discussed and different ideas we had and different areas of research we wanted to continue to pursue and all of that. And I was able to boil it down to three primary concepts, which I think we could focus in on. The first one being PUC approved rates and categories. I know we've talked about that quite a bit on if what the PUC, the commission, has currently approved as eligible fees and charges. So basically the different categories that the PUC allows for, such as, the hook fee and storage fees and after hours fees and, mileage and fuel surcharge and some of the other things that are outlined in the PUC Rule 6511. If those are all appropriate, or maybe if we'd like to see those modified, I spliced that particular concept also into what other states are doing, so other state regulations. So that was the first, I guess, concept of the three that I wanted to toss out there. The second one is one I know we've talked about a lot, which is the annual inflation adjustment mechanism. So not only just the mechanism itself and whether or not that's something the commission should allow, but also how it's done. So how it technically adjusts every year. So of course we've talked at length, over the past couple of years of the CPI, and that's the method that the PUC currently uses to determine what the inflation adjustment is on an annual basis. And one thing I can tell you just as a side note here is that we're coming up on the time of year when we make that adjustment. So pursuant to rule, we make that adjustment no later than March 15th, which is just here in a couple weeks. So usually we have reminders on our calendars to check where we find that rate, which is on the CDOLA website, which is the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. And they get that from the Bureau of Statistics and other federal sources to get that and figure out what that number is. So one thing I can tell you is I checked about a week ago and it wasn't up yet. They posted sometime in late February, but I did just check it last night and I did notice it was finally up for the 2024 calendar year. And it was 2.27%. That's probably the lowest that we've seen it in the past decade, with the exception of 2019 and 2020. And in those 2 years, it was around 1.9, so just a few ticks below the 2.27 that it's going to be for this year. So we'll be updating those tow rates, and again, we'll make sure that they're posted by March 15th, pursuant to our rule. But anyway, back to the concept group, the annual inflation adjustments. Again, whether or not the mechanism itself is appropriate. Weighing everything from the industry side to the consumer side and all those components, but also, whether or not how the commission has been doing this for the last few years using the CPI is the appropriate, data point to use, and if maybe potential alternatives are a better solution or might yield a more appropriate or accurate percentage based on the types of rates that are being adjusted. So that would be the second conceptual point. And then the third is consensual versus non-consensual towing rates. So obviously that's now part of our new statutory mandate for our recommendations to the commission, and has been since House Bill 2213-14 was signed into law. So that's another area we want to make sure we're giving attention to as we formulate any new recommendations to the commission. After our last report back in 2022. So anyway, just wanted to throw those groups out there. I've kind of drawn up a mock list of the different members on the task force currently. And again, we are still currently sitting at 13 members. We are still one short. We're still in the process of recruiting for that last position. But as of right now, that would divvy us up potentially into groups of 4, 4, and 5. I believe. So I kind of, came up with an idea of who might be best in each of those initiatives. So for the first one, PUC approved rates and categories and other state regulations. I had wrote down Captain John Hahn, Dr. Michael Pierce, Attorney General Jeffrey Reister, and myself, the Section Chief for Transportation at the PUC. For the second group, annual inflation adjustments, I had Jennifer Henson, Jim Howes, Officer Prunsky, and Joanne Rusha. And then for the third group, for consensual and non-consensual tow rates, I had John Conley, Mike Padilla, Brandon Rich, Edward Schoenheit, and Seth Thomas. Now, those aren't necessarily set in stone. If people think maybe they might do better pursuing a different concept or all of that, that's, we're open to that discussion. But this seemed to play to everybody's strengths based on these three primary concepts that we are going to want to pursue. And again, just based on the role you're playing in the communities that you're representing and likely your knowledge base in that role seem to play into what I just described. So of course, we are on this new quarterly meeting basis. We could, of course, based on needs, potentially schedule additional, individual group work group meetings if we need to. They would still need to be publicly accessible pursuant to the open meetings law. And I know we did that a little bit back in 2021. We had occasional in-between meetings for certain groups that were pursuing different things, like drafting reports and doing that kind of stuff. We were able to make that work. So that's always in our back pocket if we need to do something like that. Another thing, just to kind of kick things off on that concept where we have people kind of divvying up into different pursuits, I thought what we could do is have Hadija, who's been great at supporting this group, come up with some kind of kickoff email ideas, essentially emailing some ideas and resources to the members within each respective group, which would include, again, ideas and concepts and, some encouragement to review certain things, or maybe do some side research or something like that, and then come back with some talking or discussion points. That includes maybe data that you found or ideas or concepts that you thought of, things of that nature. So I think we can come up with a nice package for these 3 group concepts, and then send out kind of kickoff materials to each member of these respective groups, to kind of give you a little direction and kind of a nudge in the right way to maybe do some stuff on your own and figure out how you feel about some of this stuff, and then we can come back as a group and discuss it all. So that was our idea for that. Again, just keep an eye out for those emails that we're going to be sending out, and again, we'll revise all that and make sure everybody understands the types of ideas and conceptual pursuits they should be focusing on, in between our quarterly meetings. And I think that'll be good. I think we'll get some good work from the group pursuing it that way. So that was our last specific item. Item 10 on the agenda and 11 is open discussion and public comments. I think we had some people sign up for public comments, but I don't know if any of them are here or showed up. So I don't know that we have anybody present for any public comment, but that leaves the remaining item 10, which is just open discussion. So really anything anybody wants to talk about. So anybody have any thoughts or ideas or anything you've been thinking about since we met back in November? Okay. All right. Anything from Ms. Grooms from a legal standpoint? Anything we need to keep on our minds or be aware of other than the awesome training you just gave us?
Nothing comes to mind. If anyone has any questions about the training, go ahead and reach out, and I'll be sending out that memo.
Yeah, what we'll probably do, again, look for an email from Hadija. She'll be emailing you out a copy again of that affidavit that you'll need to fill out about the training. So keep an eye out for that. I assume we will likely also include a copy of the presentation from the training. So you should have those materials as well. And then I know Ms. Grooms mentioned maybe sending out something additional to all of us as well, some memo of some kind. So we can keep an eye out for that. But of course, we're here to answer questions if anything comes up. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all we had for today, unless anybody has anything else. Again, our next meeting is scheduled. Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind. That's something else. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 14th. It's a Wednesday. I know today's a Thursday. The next meeting is going to be on a Wednesday. It's the second Wednesday in May. So May 14th, same time, start time 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And yeah, we'll look forward to that. So if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the day. hope everybody has a great next couple months before we see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.